And a few months ago I had a slumber party for Friday the 13th. It was especially creepy because it was in October. I had 3 friends over, and for the sake of this story we'll call them Cindy, Janet, and Abby. They came over around 6 p.m. and we were down in the basement playing around with my mom's scrap fabric, trying to piece together Halloween costumes. Cindy wrapped a purple scrap around her bust and said she needed a green miniskirt and she could be Ariel. Janet was wearing a flannel and grabbed a straw hat and proclaimed she'd be a scarecrow. Abby was rummaging through my mom's trunk, and that's when it all began. She pulled out a dusty, tattered old box with big white letters that spelled out, Ouija, and it was just like the movies. We all went silent as we saw it. "Oh, fuck yeah," Abby exclaimed. "Who's down for a little danger tonight?" We were all giddy with excitement, but there was a weird feeling in the pit of my stomach. We'd gone through that trunk a million times, but that box was never there. It almost seemed to appear out of thin air. I ignored the feeling and joined my friends, closing the circle. We placed our hands on the planchette and went around the board 3 times, just like we'd seen in the movies. The feeling in my stomach grew, trying to consume me, but I convinced myself it was just because of all the horror movies I had watched, and it being Friday the 13th. We all looked at each other and in unison said, "Hello," followed by giggling. I couldn't believe we were playing with a Ouija board, but I wondered why my mom never mentioned having one before. She knew we were totally into all the spooky and witchy things. Abby went first and asked, "What's your name?" The planchette started moving. E-M-I-L. "Why? Who's moving it? This isn't funny," Janet said. But we all said it wasn't us. I know I certainly wasn't moving it. "How old are you?" Cindy went next. Again, the planchette started moving. "Okay, this really isn't funny," Janet continued, but we all kept playing. 9. "It's a little girl, Jan," I said in the hopes of assuaging her. "Look, I'll go next." "Will Dylan ask Janet to the haunted hayride?" Cindy and Abby giggled as Janet took her hands off the planchette and stood up and said, "Okay, I'm done. This isn't She stopped abruptly. The planchette started moving again, this time to no. "Really funny, guys, you're real assholes," she continued. "Relax, it was just me teasing," Abby said as she removed her hand from the planchette, prompting Cindy to do the same. They started arguing, but I kept on playing, that feeling inside me screaming at me to stop, but something made me keep playing. "How did you die?" I asked, and everyone looked back at me. K-N. "That's not funny, Mel," Abby sputtered. "I swear I didn't move it," I said, but knew I was lying. I stood up and suggested we go to my room and watch the movies we had picked out. We started up the stairs when we heard it. We all looked back and saw the planchette moving across the board erratically. We couldn't believe our eyes. The stairs started shaking, and the light bulb went out. It was pitch black, and we all fell on top of each other and were now on the ground. I screamed, the weight of the others on me. I knew my leg was broken. Our screams turned into whimpers, as I heard my mom yell if we were okay. When we didn't answer, I heard footsteps above me, and then the door opened, and the lights turned back on. "What is going on here?" she exclaimed, and went rushing down the stairs when she saw all of us on top of each other. "Abby, what happened?" she said, and that's when I saw her standing over the board. There was no way she could have avoided the collision. She was behind me, and I felt her body under mine, but it didn't matter. She was over the board. The adrenaline was slowly wearing off, and I began to groan. Everyone got off me, and there was blood all over Janet's shirt, the sight signaling everyone to look down at me, and we saw the bone sticking out of my pants. I then knew what bone white meant. "Girls, go to the kitchen and wait for me there. Mel, stay put. I'm calling an ambulance." Stay put? As if I could move. My mom ran up the stairs, and I could hear her talking to the 911 operator. Abby leaned down and whispered in my ear. Emily said, "That's just the beginning." And she proceeded to walk up the stairs. Her breath lingered in my ear, and that feeling in my stomach grew into a pitch-black hole, swallowing my stomach. The ambulance came and took me away, and I heard my mom tell Abby to take everyone home. She was the only one of us with a car and license. I yelled and said she couldn't take them home. She couldn't take them anywhere. My mom thought I just wanted them to come with me, but I couldn't let them anywhere near it. I don't know how I knew, but I just did. Abby wasn't Abby anymore, and Emily certainly wasn't a little girl. I had to stop them, but I was getting lightheaded from the blood loss, and then everything went black. I woke up in a hospital room to my mom in the corner, fast asleep, the sun shining brightly outside the window. "Mom," I was able to croak. She jumped and looked at me with a look of grievance. "What happened?" I asked. "You broke your leg and had emergency surgery because you were losing a lot of blood. It's Saturday morning." "Where are my friends? Can I see them? What happened last night?" Her eyes began tearing up, and she had the same look on her face as she did when my dad died, and I knew then. Whatever had a hold of Abby did something. There was an accident. Abby was driving the girls home when a drunk driver ran a red light and hit them. "I'm so sorry," she said as tears began streaming down her face. "Cindy and Janet weren't wearing their seatbelts and didn't make it." I went hysterical. I started wailing, and the black pit inside my stomach returned, now even bigger. My mom ran over and hugged me, gently stroking my hair and making shushing noises. I couldn't believe it, but at the same time, I knew it was going to happen. Abby is here for observation, but she only seems to have a concussion and a few stitches. I hoped the crash expelled whatever was inside her, but I knew it probably killed what was left of Abby. "What happened last night, anyway?" my mom asked. "We were going upstairs to watch some movies, then the planchette on your Ouija board started going crazy. The lights went out, stairs were shaking, and then everyone fell." "My Ouija board?" "Sweetie, what are you talking about? I've never played with a Ouija board." "Mom, we found it in your trunk of scrap fabric." "Sorry, sweetie, that's not mine. Did one of you bring it and hide it in there?" "I don't know, maybe," I said, but I knew none of us brought it in. I was discharged and returned home. The numb feeling was due to everything that had happened and had nothing to do with my meds. I stayed home Monday and Tuesday, but returned Wednesday. Everyone was nice to me. I broke my leg and had just lost my best friends. All of them. Abby tried acting normal, but I knew what she really was. I had lunch with Dylan and we just talked about Cindy and Janet and how we couldn't believe what had happened. Abby said she was going off campus for lunch, but we stayed behind. A few weeks passed and it was just me and Dylan every day at lunch. Abby had her own friends. She never hung out with us even before the crash. Only outside of school. We weren't cool enough for her. Dylan started coming over after school and we worked on our homework together. We were getting close after the crash. We had always been friends, but never got too close because Janet had a huge crush on him. It felt like we could actually be friends now that she was gone, and I felt guilty for that. I felt guilty for finding solace. A few more weeks went by, and Abby was getting more and more popular as I grew more and more numb. I sat behind her in English and noticed something strange. The back of her neck was scabbing. It's almost as though her flesh was rotting. It was black and flaking off. How could none of her friends have noticed? Was that thing inside her finally making its way out? After school, Dylan came over to work on our homework, and I finally confided all my thoughts and experiences to him, and he looked at me with disbelief. I mean, I don't blame him. I'd think I was crazy too if I hadn't seen everything with my own eyes. "Geez, Mel, you can't just say someone's possessed because they're getting more and more popular. What happened was an accident. Abby didn't kill them. The drunk driver's in jail. That's all we can ask for at this point," he said. "I know, but," I began. "You weren't there. You didn't see the blackness in her eyes. Please, just pay attention to her at school and you'll see what I mean. Okay, I just want you to be okay. This year's been horrible for all of us," he said as he pulled me in for a hug. He began stroking my hair and I immediately felt more at ease. "It'll all be okay, I promise," he whispered in my ear. I don't know what came over me, but I turned to kiss his neck. He pushed me away and looked at me with surprise before pulling me in and kissing me. Oh, God. He tasted sweet and familiar, and for the first time in months, I felt something. We kept kissing until we became one. He kissed my forehead as we laid on the shag carpet in the basement. The basement, the place where it all started. I started crying and pleaded that he believe me about Abby. Hey, it's okay, I believe you. I'll start paying attention, I promise," he said, as he pulled me in closer. A few more weeks passed and we talked about Abby more. He was finally able to see what I was talking about. The scabbing on the back of her neck spread and it was getting harder and harder for her to hide it. I noticed her fingers turning black too, and then she came to school wearing gloves, claiming it was poor circulation and the cold, but I knew better. We knew better. We decided we needed to take action. Someone had to put an end to Abby and whatever was inside of her. We couldn't let anyone else die because of her. I invited Abby over. I told her I didn't like the way things were between us, and I wanted things to be better. She agreed and said she'd come over Friday night. Dylan and I prepared everything we would need: black trash bags, a knife, and that dreaded Ouija board. She came downstairs to the basement, and we sat in silence for a few minutes. What happened that night? I was finally able to muster. We were almost to John's house when some drunk ran through a red light and hit us. We were only going down the street to her house, and we're going to sleep there until we found out you were going to be okay. All I remember was seeing glass everywhere, and then everything went black. I didn't find out they didn't make it until I woke up in the hospital, she said, trying to hold back tears. I didn't believe a single word that came out of its mouth. I knew it was all a ploy to gain my sympathy, but that wasn't Abby. I could feel that same blackness growing inside me, signaling it was time to act before it got too much power. I tucked my hair behind my ear, and that was Dylan's sign to knock her out. He took my mom's old candlestick and hit her, and her body thudded on the ground motionless. I quickly got up and started laying the trash bags on the floor so as to not get any blood on the shower carpet. Otherwise, my mom would never let me live it down. Dylan and I rolled her limp body to the center of the room, and I grabbed the knife from its hiding place under the couch cushions, and I lifted it past my head when Dylan interrupted. "Are you sure? I've never been so sure of anything in my life. I know it was lying. That thing isn't Abby," I yelled as I plunged the knife into her chest, hoping I got right to where the heart was supposed to be. It let out a small gasp, trying to catch its breath. It whispered, "Why?" As I pulled the knife out and kept plunging it into its lifeless body. I had to be sure it was really gone. If it was going to take my friends, I had to put an end to it before it took me to. Dylan stopped me at some point, reminding me that my mom would be home soon. I had half expected the body to sort of go up in flames, but when it didn't, I knew what I had to do. Dylan and I wrapped the body in the trash bags and stuffed its limp body into the trunk along with the Ouija board. I hoped whatever it was took the Ouija board back to wherever it came from, and that it would take the body with it. All I know is that its body is still there, and the growing blackness is consuming me still. It's moved on, and I need to find wherever it went.